With the ACT government now in caretaker mode, Canberra's Legislative Assembly has fallen quiet, and staff have begun preparing for the next term. The mace has been removed from the chamber and locked away, the lights turned off and the doors shut. Even the artwork in ministerial offices is getting put into storage until the new occupants move in. As for the politicians, Labor Chief Minister Andrew Barr and Liberal opposition leader Elizabeth Lee have got just 36 more days to convince Canberrans that they should lead the territory for the next 4 years. There are 5 electorates in the ACT and each elects 5 members. Right now, Labor holds 10 of the 25 seats and governs with the Greens, who hold 6. The Canberra Liberals have 9 and history is against them. Labor has held power since 2001 and the Liberals have been in government for just 8 of the 35 years since May 1989. So, will Andrew Barr, who has served as Chief Minister for nearly a decade, savour the taste of victory again? Or are things about to change? Antony Green is the ABC's Chief Election Analyst. Antony Green, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Labor has ruled Canberra for 23 years now. Can you put this in some more context for us? Are there many other state or territory governments that have lasted longer?
Oh, I had the coalition in Queensland last 32 years, and then we had the Bolte government, the Liberals in Victoria went for 27, but that was a much quieter political period in the post-war era, because you got those sorts of governments. I mean, the pace of politics has picked up nationally and around the country in the last 2 decades, except in the ACT, where we seem to have this forever government that Labor provides the Chief Minister, and we've had a variety of minority Labor governments, majority Labor governments and Labor Green sort of working governments.
Yeah, Andrew Barr has been Chief Minister for nearly 10 years now. Tony Abbott was the Prime Minister when he got the job. How unique does that make Mr Barr in the current crop of political leaders that we've got across the country?
Oh, I think another way to look at it is Andrew Barr is the only member remaining head of government that sat metaphorically around the national cabinet table during COVID. Every other Prime Minister, Premier and Chief Minister has moved on.
The ACT, of course, Antony, uses the proportional Hare-Clark system, which means the major parties are confident of getting between 9 and 11 seats generally, and then they're hoping they can rely on friendly crossbenchers. How difficult is it then for the Canberra Liberals to unseat Labor? What sort of vote percentage and things to go right do they actually need?
Well, they actually need to uppoll Labor for a start. I mean, you've got to have roughly the same vote to get at least the same number of seats. The Liberal Party tends to, the Labor Party and the Greens, while they're competing for a seat often, if one of them misses out, they usually help the other party win the Labor for a 3rd seat or the Greens a 1st seat. The Liberals are stuck at struggling to get beyond 2. They've occasionally got 3 in Brindabella. That's been their problem, and their vote is traditionally lower than Labor, and that makes it harder for them to win. When they did govern under Kate Carnell back in the 90s, in that era Labor was going through a bit of a dark period after losing federal office, and there were various factional problems in the Labor Party in the ACT at the time. But there were also some Conservative independents elected. Michael Moore was elected, Paul Osborne, Dave Rugendijk, and they were able to help Kate Carnell, who never got a majority for the Liberal Party in her own right, to form a functioning government. Since then, the only other party that's been elected to the Assembly, I think there was one Democrat, but all the others have been Greens. There hasn't been somebody else elected to the crossbench who might support a Liberal government. Plus, the Liberal Party vote has just continued to decline, it just hasn't risen. And if you look at Senate elections, it's just declined. So the last ACT Senate election, the Liberal vote fell to 25%, which doesn't augur well for how they'll go at the ACT Legislative Assembly election.
Yeah, and at that last federal election, as a result of that low vote, the independent Senator David Pocock was able to snatch a spot from the Liberal Party. He has since encouraged a local crop of independents to run. Do they have a chance? What do they need to do to be successful?
Well, it's interesting to look at the dynamics of the Senate contest. It was always one Labor guaranteed, one Liberal guaranteed, and the Greens tried many times to win that seat, but they couldn't force the Liberal vote down below a 1/3, so they never got a look in. when David Pocock came along as an independent, he took votes from both the Liberal Party and the Greens and got elected on Green preferences. So he won the second seat. In the same way that many Teals have won Liberal seats. They take votes from Labor, Liberal and Greens to get up. I think what we've seen around the country in recent years is when there is a serious competitive independent running, sometimes the Green vote is eroded.
Now, of course, this is no surprise. Canberra is a city that is usually very focused on what's happening up at Parliament House. And of course, a lot of people are working for the Federal Public Service as well. How much, Antony, does federal politics, whoever's governing at a national level, play into the ACT political landscape?
I think it has in the past. I'm not sure it does at the moment. I think the Liberal Party locally has got a few black marks against it because of what's happened in federal politics under various things, attempts to try and get the federal government to intervene on various issues in the ACT because it was a territory. So I think there's a few issues there which are in play, which means I don't think the course of federal politics of Labor being in government is necessarily going to hurt the Barr government.
Just finally, Antony, we're going to be together for election night at the National Museum on the 19th of October. The ACT system, as you were just alluding to, is a bit unique. Just tell us, how quickly will those results come in, and how soon will we get an idea of who has actually won this election?
Well, because the ACT has moved very much, it did during COVID and is continuing this time, moved away from the concept of a polling day to a polling period. You can still vote on the day, but only 22% of people voted on polling day at the last election. In the ACT, all the pre-polls are taken electronically, and at about 5 minutes past 6, they get released as a couple of big batches. So before 7 o'clock, we basically have 3/4, 2/3, 3/4 of the vote counted. And then about an hour later, we get the first distribution of preferences, which gives an indication of which candidates are elected. But really, realistically, we'll know very quickly whether the Liberal Party vote is improved, whether Labor's taken a hit, whether Green vote's holding up. We'll know that very quickly in the coverage. The rest of the night is taken up with trying to figure out which of those candidates on the ballot paper get elected.
All right, Antony Green, I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you in a few weeks' time.
Can't wait.